Jessica Levinson, Supreme Court census decision could hand control of the Electoral College to Republicans? That implies that it's currently held by the Democrats. And let's follow that implication. If it's held by the Democrats and the Supreme Court's going to move it to the Republicans, why do you care? It's got to go to somebody, doesn't it? Hello, and welcome to the Tea Party Hardy channel, where the party is just getting started. Current events looked at through a skeptical eye using science, history, and sometimes humor to explore the events of the day. Let's get down to business. Let's see. The Supreme Court appears poised to hand Republicans an enormous victory this term. The balance, it's funny because it goes by following a law, shocker. The balance of power in Congress and the winner of the next presidential election could both be, indirectly, decided by the Supreme Court's ruling in this case. Yeah, that's all one sentence, and it is as messy as it looks. The legal question in this case, the United States Department of Commerce versus New York, hinges on whether the Department of Commerce, charged with administering the census, can ask responders whether or not they are U.S. citizens in the census questionnaire. The fact that this is debatable is proof that it's 2019. What a joke to even question whether or not they're allowed to ask U.S. citizens if they're U.S. citizens. And if you're not, what the frick are you doing taking the test? Sorry, census. It really is kind of a test. You'll see if you get the long... Let's see. Respondents, whether or not they are used... We did that one. The census counts the number of people who live in our country every 10 years. And by the way, it says ever 10 years. That's her typo. In our country. When you finish reading this whole article, you have a whole different understanding of what it means to be our country. It determines how much federal funding, how many members of Congress, and how many electors the Electoral College allocated to each district in the nation. Now, we've had this debate for at least the last year, and over and over again, people on the right keep pointing out to the people on the left, the census is not designed for federal funding, and yet that is always the first thing out of the lefties' mouths, is that it determines federal funding. No, that's not what the census is for, and she'll admit that coming up. It was never for, and it never is, for determining federal funding. That is an offshoot of the concept of federal funding, which is not in the Constitution. Thank you very little. Okay, how much federal... Okay. And the Electoral College are allocated to district in the nation. Yes. Perhaps the two most important things states can get from the federal government are money. There it is again, first thing out of her mouth. And people, representatives, and electors. And the census determines both. Perhaps the two most important things states can get from the federal government are for them to get the frick out of their business. That's the most important thing that the federal government can do, is stop getting in our business. And this concept of federal funding is the most important thing. Do you realize that before FDR, there was no federal funding for anything? Before the New Deal, there was no federal funding for anything. The only interaction people had with the federal government before FDR was the draft, and we're done. That's how much this country changed. Franklin Delano Roosevelt. That's why the lefties and the socialists love him. Because now it's all about first thing out of their mouth. Oh, the federal funding is determined by the census. It's not supposed to. As you can see, it says right here. But can the Department of Commerce, which is charged with administering the census, ask people whether or not they're U.S. citizens? We previously did ask the question, but we have not asked all U.S. households since 1950. There's a reason that says all, because in the long form, they've been asking. We asked before 1950, and we still ask. So of course they can. Of course they can. They have. Of course they can. What a stupid question. What is the legal background? Oh, here we go. Now she's going to have to admit it has nothing to do with money. The enumeration clause of the U.S. Constitution requires that Congress must count how many people live in the country, period. And I'm going to do that again. The enumeration clause of the U.S. Constitution requires that the Congress must count how many people live in the country. Period. Nothing to do with money. Nothing. Congress delegates the authority to administer this Department of Commerce as part of the Census Act. Okay, fine. Happy, happy, joy, joy. The Secretary of Commerce has broad authority to administer the census. Well, okay. But under yet another Administration Procedure Act may not administer the census in a fashion that is arbitrary or capricious. Capricious means to overspend, to be show-offy. The Department of Commerce claims that the citizenship information is needed to help enforce Federal Voting Rights Act. It also argues that under the Census Act, Congress before has the power to determine how the census is administered, and this includes whether or not the citizenship is added. Question is that, well, that seems reasonable. However, the challengers, including the author, argue that adding a citizenship question to the census will lead to a gross undercounting of people in immigrant-heavy districts. Why? Why? Why would it create a huge, gross undercounting of people in immigrant-heavy districts? I don't remember the Irish rebelling against the census. I don't remember the Italians rebelling against the census. Why would they rebel against it now? Why would people who immigrated to our country, legally moved here, why would they rebel against it? They argue that particularly illegal immigrants... Oh my God, it was the next sentence. I'm such an airhead. They argue that particularly illegal immigrants will be deterred from answering the census altogether, for fear that the government could arrest and deport them. What, for being here illegally? Why would our government arrest and deport people who do illegal things? That seems reasonable. In fact, the undercounting could be so problematic that it could violate the constitutional requirement in the enumeration clause that every person in the country be counted. And here's where you get to the paradox of the left. They're arguing that we should legally count illegal people, otherwise we're acting illegally. I'm going to do that again. They're arguing that we should legally illegal people, otherwise you're acting illegally. That, my friends, is the paradox they swim in all the time, and they're completely cool with it. They're completely cool with the fact that, no, you're breaking the law if you don't count our illegal aliens. But aren't we breaking the law by having illegal aliens? Shut up, don't ask that question. Oh my goodness, the Census Bureau has indicated that as many as 6.5 million people may not be counted if the citizenship question is included. Why? Because they're going to lie? Because these people who came here illegally are going to lie? I can't imagine. Yes, I can. I don't like to do the sarcasm thing. I can imagine illegals lying. Like when they lie about the Social Security number, or when they lie about being here legally when they get a job. And when they lie, and 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 then they lie and say, you can't avoid counting us. If you avoid counting us, then you're breaking the law, says the illegal aliens and the illegal alien defenders. If the Supreme Court upholds this, we've been asking all the way along. Oh, we stopped in the 50s. No, we only stopped on the short form. We've been asking. This is a stupid question by stupid people who say that you have to legally count illegal aliens. That just oozes in. I'm sorry, I don't like to be so vulgar, but that is just stupid. And that they're worried because now, look at this. Money. Hundreds of billions of dollars of federal funding hang in the balance. Why? Why is there hundreds of billions of dollars of federal funding for anything? Seriously, why is there hundreds of billions of dollars of federal funding for anything? Not in the Constitution. It's not. This country it was a powerhouse before FDR, and now it's a socialist nation pretending not to be. Socialism, hundreds of billions of dollars in federal funding hang in the balance. And because the census determines the allocation of congressional seats, following the law, and electoral college votes, following the law, the outcome of the federal elections, except in the Senate, from 2022 and 2030 likely hang in the balance as well, if we follow the law. But we want you to follow the law to count our illegal aliens so we can illegally continue to have them get more stuff for them illegally. I'm sorry, that's just stupid. We hope you enjoyed the content, and if you did, feel free to like, subscribe, come on back anytime. You're always welcome here as part of the family, and we'll see you in the future.